Now, our last witness before we go to public comment will be Joe Vranich, who is the former CEO of the High Speed Rail Association, former executive director of the National Association of Railroad Passengers, and co-author of the California High Speed Rail Proposal, a due diligence report. Welcome to the committee.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ashburn. I was asked to appear here not because I'm a high-speed rail critic, but because I've been an advocate for nearly 40 years. This is the first time I am unable to endorse a high-speed rail plan. Why is that? Because after reviewing countless rail plans over many, many years, I have found the authorities' work, regrettably, to be the poorest I have ever seen. Mr. Chairman, I will provide you with some of the risks. What I will say here today could be used as an outline for part of the business plan. High-speed rail, I want to be clear, could effectively serve legitimate public or environmental purposes or be a financial success, but the current proposal is untenable. The train will be slower than they say it will carry fewer people than they claim it will, and will cost much more than they admit it will. The authorities' ridership projections, we have some data here on ridership intensity I'll get to in a moment. The ridership projections are considerably higher than independent figures developed for comparable California systems in studies by the Federal Railroad Administration, the University of California Transportation Center at Berkeley, and in the recent due diligence report. Here is just one comparison. Using generous assumptions, the due diligence report projects a 2030 base of 23.4 million intercity riders. This is 64% below the authorities' base of 65.5 million intercity riders. By the way, let me add, our figure is above the Federal Railroad Administration's figure, so we've actually been a little generous here. Moreover, the authorities' projection of 117 million annual riders is so far from reality that I have to call it what it is, science fiction. Let's look at load factors. The authorities' projection is far higher than what is found on high-speed rail systems around the world. The authority anticipates an average load factor of nearly 85%. The Federal Railroad Administration study for California placed the average at 51%. The TGV system in France, which I've been on and I love, claims a load factor of 71%. The authorities' projected load factor is nearly 20% higher than the very impressive French figure. Let's look at ridership intensity projections, and this is what we have on this particular chart. Ridership intensity is a demand measurement. The authority projects intensities that are far above those achieved in Japan, France, the Boston-Washington corridor. In 2005, Japan's bullet train system registered an intensity of 33 million passengers of travel. 33 million passengers of travel per route mile. The authority projects a far higher figure of up to 62 million intercity passengers of travel in 2030, almost double. This, simply put, cannot be believed. Travel time in the market. Among the unreal estimates is the trains will connect San Francisco with Los Angeles in 2 hours and 42 minutes. For that to occur, the trains would have to operate at an average speed of 197 miles per hour, a feat that has yet to be accomplished anywhere in the world. That, combined with routing problems, means it's likely to take an hour longer. Fares. The ridership projections rely on super bargain fares in 2030, far lower than fares are in 2007 on high-speed rail systems. Some perspective. The authority wants us to believe that the per-mile charges in 2030 will be 1/7 what Amtrak charges today between New York and Washington. This also cannot be believed. Costs. By 2008, it was estimated the cost had risen to more than $45 billion for only part of the originally proposed system. A more realistic estimate is the ultimate cost will be between $65 billion and $81 billion. And our figures are in 2008 dollars. They tend to talk in 2006 dollars. And that excludes, of course, the billions of dollars of interest on the bonds. We have a chart here also on profitability. I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is, sorry. And as you see, the claims of profitability in our judgment could not conceivably be credible under really, well, even the most optimistic assumptions. You could argue that there could be a little bit of a profit there if every projection they made on ridership was accurate, if every cost projection they made is accurate, if no undue circumstances evolved and so forth. And even then, there's not enough profit, depending on how you define profit, to be paying back the bonds and building other lines and so forth like they say they will do. So in our view, the extensions to Sacramento and San Diego that are supposed to be built out of profits will probably never be built. Let's look at train design. Rail service planning usually determines early on what the general train design parameters are. I've done work for the Pennsylvania High-Speed Rail Commission. I've supported the Texas High-Speed Rail program. I was involved in some planning at Amtrak. I don't know anybody who's ever gone into what I'm about to describe. The authority's planning documents cite trains with a capacity of 450 seats, 500 seats, 650 seats, 1,175 seats, 1,200 seats, and a jumbo train of 1,600 seats. And it's hard because the documentation is so jumbled to be able to determine, well, what are the operating costs for which size train? What are the GHG emissions, but for which size train? All of that matters. And I may be the only person who has read thousands of pages of the last 10 years of this authority's work, and I have to tell you, it's like looking at a bowl of spaghetti. It's so jumbled. Lack of a business plan. I make my living as an executive coach. I won't go into that today, except to say I have clients who develop business plans. So I know a little bit about the issue. According to the Bakersfield Californian, only 2 weeks ago, the authority's executive director said most of the information the business plan will contain has already been made public, something that Judge Kopp asserted here again this morning. Absolutely false. What appears in thousands of pages of documentation fails to address the mandates in AB 3034. Moreover, since the website was mentioned earlier, some documents on the authority's website have disappeared in 2007. I have them retained on my computer. What circumstances justify the authority having less information available during the very year when more information should be accessible to the voters? I'm about to issue a tough prescription or recommendation here. Before I do, I want to be real clear. I support high-speed rail and what some have called slow-speed rail. I was the first person at Amtrak to argue for improved frequencies between Los Angeles and San Diego, and the first person at Amtrak to argue for linking up Sacramento with Oakland and San Jose with frequent trains. So there are people who say, oh, we shouldn't do high-speed rail. We should make incremental improvements to the existing system. And, you know, there's a lot of logic to that. I've supported that in the past, and I could again in the future. I have to also say that some people say, no, we need an all high-speed rail system, high-tech trains, and I have to admit that's where I am. That's what excites me. I'm the author of the book Super Trains, which argued for that, which, by the way, was endorsed by the Sierra Club and Friends of the Earth. So that's what excites me, and I'd like to see high-speed rail built, but not this boondoggle. High-speed rail holds great promise in certain sections of the country, but the work of the authority is so deficient that if the current plan is implemented, it has the potential of setting back the cause of high-speed rail throughout the United States. The authority has not learned the lessons. What caused high-speed rail to fail in Texas, which I supported? What caused it to fail in Florida? What caused it to fail between Los Angeles and San Diego? All of the elements, high ridership estimates, low-cost estimates, disregard for local environmental impacts and so forth, they're repeating all of them as if they never read a single page of history. It boggles my mind, which forces me to say, it is time to dissolve the California High-Speed Rail Authority. Give it no more funding than is required for terminating contracts, transferring data and duties to a more responsible agency, and conducting an orderly shutdown. High-speed rail in California may be salvageable after all this poor work, but someone else must be in charge. If the authority is unable to conduct studies that have credibility, how will they ever effectively deliver a mega construction project on time and within budget? In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, you asked back in June, what assurance can the authority provide that California taxpayers will not be stuck with a massive bill in the future? My answer, sir, there is no assurance whatsoever. Under the current plan, taxpayers will have to subsidize a poorly designed system in perpetuity. Thank you.
Why don't you tell us how you really feel?
I know. I love high-speed trains, and I hate to see it tainted this way.